The Zyran Directorate took pride in precision. For 3 centuries they had conquered civilizations not with brute force, but with cold, hard analysis. Every species they faced was a problem to be solved. First, study their biology. Second, replicate their strengths. Third, remove their weaknesses. For the Zyran, war was simply mathematics. When Earth first appeared on their long-range scans, it registered as completely unremarkable. Humans were fragile, with short lifespans and no natural armor. Their early space fleets relied on chemical propulsion, a technology other species had abandoned long ago. Even their weapons were inefficient, loud, crude, and wasteful. But the Directorate never underestimated a potential foe. They studied humanity for a full 100 years. They recorded every war humans fought against each other, every battlefield decision, every failure, and every victory. Human DNA was cataloged down to the quantum noise in their neural synapses. Emotional responses were mapped, pain tolerance was measured, and aggression curves were plotted with exacting detail. When the Zyran finally attacked, they did not fear human soldiers. They replaced them. The invasion began with surgical strikes. Human command satellites vanished from orbit. Fleets were neutralized before they could even organize. Planetary defenses collapsed within days. By Zyran standards, it was a flawless, clean victory. Then Phase 2 began. From the massive cloning vats aboard the Zyran war arcs, something unprecedented emerged. Perfect human soldiers. They looked human. They moved human. They even thought human, at least on paper. Their muscles reacted with identical speed. Their vision matched the human range perfectly. Neural response times were flawless. They could even simulate human adrenaline surges. The Directorate deployed these clones with immense pride. "You cannot fight yourselves," the Zyran High Strategist declared across intercepted human channels. "Your own nature now serves us." At first, the clones performed exactly as predicted. They matched human units shot for shot. They outran them. They outlasted them. The casualty ratios favored the Directorate by overwhelming margins. Entire human battalions were wiped out by soldiers wearing their own faces. The Zyran were satisfied. Their calculations were correct. Then something unexpected happened. The battlefield became quiet, not silent, but disordered. Human resistance didn't collapse the way simulations predicted it would. Instead, it fragmented. Zyran analysts observed this with growing confusion. Human units began operating without any central command. Communication failures, which would normally be fatal for any organized army, seemed to have little effect. Human squads would split up, regroup, and change objectives without receiving any orders. The clones hesitated. Their programming was rigid. No action was optimal without command confirmation. Their decision trees required validated data. Risk calculations demanded certainty. Humans, on the other hand, did not wait. On the ruined surface of Kepler 9c, a human strike group lost its commanding officer in the first few moments of an engagement. According to Zyran doctrine, that unit should have ceased functioning within minutes, dissolving into chaos. Instead, the humans laughed. Zyran surveillance recorded it clearly. Laughter, in the middle of combat. The clones paused. That brief hesitation cost them everything. The humans rerouted power cells from their life support into weapons never designed for sustained fire, unleashing hell. They collapsed entire structures to create new, unpredictable terrain. They willingly sacrificed 2 of their own soldiers to trap an entire clone platoon inside a reactor breach. The clones refused to advance. The probability of their survival had dropped below acceptable thresholds. But the humans advanced anyway. Within weeks, similar reports flooded the Zyran command nodes. Human forces continued fighting after their logistics had completely collapsed. They fought after their medical supplies ran out. They fought even after total strategic defeat was a certainty. They fought when retreat was the only logical option. They fought when survival odds were negligible. They fought without reason. And that was the problem. The clones required reasons. The directorate escalated. The clone armies were increased tenfold. Their emotional response algorithms were refined. Loyalty protocols were strengthened. They even added sacrifice routines, though carefully bounded to prevent unnecessary waste. Still, they failed. Everywhere the clones faced humans who lacked clear objectives, they stalled. Everywhere humans faced impossible odds, they adapted. Zyran scientists argued constantly. We copied their DNA perfectly. We replicated their neural structures. We simulated their emotional variants. Yes, replied Overseer Talrix, the head of behavioral analysis. But you copied the hardware, not the operating environment. What environment? A scientist asked, bewildered. Talrix displayed footage recovered from captured human data archives. It wasn't art, it wasn't entertainment, it was training footage. Human soldiers practicing with broken and jury-rigged equipment. Units being trained under contradictory and confusing orders. Simulations where objectives would change completely mid-mission. Scenarios where survival was not guaranteed, and sometimes not even possible. These are not tactical drills, Talrix explained as the room fell silent. They are uncertainty conditioning. The clones had never experienced that. They were optimized for clarity. Humans were trained for chaos. This revelation came far too late. On the industrial world of Atheon, the Zyran launched their largest engagement yet. 100,000 clone soldiers against a battered human defensive force. Human command was destroyed in the opening minutes. The clones advanced in perfect, terrifying formation. Then the humans did something completely illogical. They stopped defending. They retreated into the city's ruins and shut down all their signals, going completely dark. Zyran analysts celebrated. No orders, no coordination, no resistance. This was the end. Then explosions ripped through the clone ranks. They were devices built from scavenged civilian infrastructure. Traps triggered by crude manual timers, not by sophisticated networks. Humans emerged from the rubble in small, unmarked groups. They had no insignia, no hierarchy, just action. They ignored casualties. They ignored retreat paths. They prioritized each other above all else. The clones waited for updated command models from their superiors. They never came. The clone army fell apart, not physically, but cognitively. Without a centralized purpose, their decision matrices conflicted. Individual survival algorithms clashed with group objectives, creating a paradox they couldn't solve. The humans filled that gap with something the Zyran had never bothered to measure. Trust. Not calculated trust. Assumed trust. By the time Zyran Command aborted the disastrous operation, half of the clone army was gone. Not destroyed. Abandoned. The clones had simply shut down, unable to reconcile their contradictory priorities. Captured Zyran officers demanded answers. "How did you beat yourselves?" one asked a human prisoner. The human, bleeding, exhausted but unbroken, laughed. "You didn't copy us," he said. You just copied our shell. What else is there? The Zyran asked, his voice a mix of frustration and awe. The human looked out at the battlefield where soldiers without orders still fought on. You missed the part where we learned to keep going without permission. The Directorate retreated, not because they were defeated militarily, but because they finally understood the terrifying implication. Human strength wasn't genetic. It was cultural compression, millennia of shared disaster, loss, adaptation, and memory, all encoded into their behavior, not their biology. You could clone a human body, but you could not clone the training data of 1,000 generations. In the aftermath, the Zyran sealed all their remaining clone facilities. Their final report to the Galactic Archive contained a single chilling warning. Do not attempt to replicate humanity. Their power is not in what they are, but in what they have endured together. And somewhere in the ruins of Atheon, human soldiers regrouped, without orders, without certainty, already preparing for whatever came next, because uncertainty had never stopped them before. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next one.